You know, when the DC universe was coming out, they pitched out a whole bunch of different ideas for shows and movies we could see coming up. Now, of course, we've already seen a few. We've had the Creature Commandos, we've had Peacemaker, we've had Superman, we've had Supergirl, though rather not talk about Supergirl. And we've got a couple more coming out this year. We got Lanterns starting up this week, which I'm extremely excited about. And then, of course, we've got Clayface, which looks just absolutely phenomenal. So that's all coming too. But there were a bunch of other things mentioned. We've heard whispers and reports that their Booster Gold series was probably pulled and canceled. So that's there. But there's also the potential here of the idea that maybe some other things are getting canceled too. And that comes to us in a report from The Ankler. The Ankler put out a report talking about DC's TV trouble. Lanterns, not that Lanterns is in any kind of trouble, arrives, but two big shows die. And basically the reporting is saying that the Ankler is saying that the shows Waller, of course, from Peacemaker and the DC universe, and the Island of Themyscira series, Paradise Lost, have both been canceled. Now, this has not come from anybody at DC. This has not come from, any of the actors involved or writers involved, but it is the Ankler, and the Ankler is usually pretty right on with their stuff. And they're saying both Waller and the Paradise Lost City have, you can't really say canceled if they never actually got going, but at least let's say their development has been ceased. The development has been ceased. At least that's what the report is saying. If this is true, I have a couple of thoughts. The first thought being that, man, considering that the DCU has not been around that long, we're starting to get into Kathleen Kennedy level cancellation of projects. I mean, we've already had the aforementioned Booster Gold. I don't know what is happening with the Swamp Thing that they pouted. Now we're hearing about Waller, Paradise Lost. I mean, again, it happens. Like, you have things that you put into a development process, and if it's not coming together, then you don't do it. Not a big deal, kind of standard thing. It's not the same thing as, say, what happened with Marvel and Blade, because they literally announced the project on the stage at Comic-Con, marched out their lead star, and all that kind of, like, gave it a release date and everything a couple of times, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a bit of a different situation, but still only about 4 years in, and we seem to have a lot of projects falling by the wayside. Listen, as a big DC fan, as a big fan of James Gunn, I gotta say, that's kind of concerning. Now, the other hand, though, I'd have to say that I don't mind the idea of, say, a Waller and Paradise Lost being put on the back burner. I don't mind that idea, because one of my criticisms of the current state of the DCU has been, listen, I love the idea of peppering in lesser known, smaller IP and not have every movie be Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman. I like that. Like, I like that we had Peacemaker. I love that we have Lanterns coming, although you could argue Lanterns is a big hitter too. I'm excited to see Clayface. But is now, when we're getting into 4 years since all the announcements, and we still don't have any definitive direction on a Batman at all. We still don't have Wonder Woman anywhere to be seen. And there hasn't even been mention or whispers of other core Justice League members, whether it's Flash or Aquaman or whoever else you want to mention. Is now really the time to be doing a Jimmy Olsen Gorilla Grodd show? Is this really the time? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not against the idea of a Jimmy Olsen Gorilla Grodd show, but is now the time to do that when we are years into this now and we don't even have Batman on the roadmap anywhere? Is now the time to do that? And so, to me, to me, and this is a huge if this is all true and Waller and Paradise Lost have been put on the back burner for now, like maybe they'll come back into being a year down the line, 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line. But if it's true that these have been put on the back burner, I would like to believe, and again, this is just me as a fan theorizing, I would like to believe that the reason for doing so is to say we've got to realign a little bit. We have to start reprioritizing some of the bigger hitters now. Because so far, all due respect to the Supergirl character, she is a derivative B-level character. All due respect. And I was super excited about the movie, but even when I was excited about the movie before watching it and being disappointed by it, but even when I was still in the very excited about it stage, I was like, but Supergirl is a derivative B-level character. Very powerful one, but a derivative B-level character nonetheless. We are years in and really all we've had is Superman. Good starting point, but that's all we've had. So if we find out two things, one, that the report is true, and two, that I wouldn't doubt it if the reason for them being sidelined right now is to just get a little bit of focus on some of the bigger, higher profile IPs, because guys, to me, these smaller things, a Paradise Lost, a Jimmy Olsen, a Waller, these are great projects to have to pepper in with the larger IPs, to give more depth to the universe and to give more variety to the universe, and that can be used really, really well. I'm all for it, but it seems like we're having 3 of these lesser things for every one major thing we're getting addressed. So I don't know about this. Anyway, Rob, you've heard the stories going around that they might be shelving these or just putting them on the back burner for a few years or whatever. Number one, what's your first thought about hearing that? And number two, what do you think the reasons behind that might be?
Well, John, first of all, I mean, the DCEU under James Gunn and Peter Safran came out guns a-blazing. I mean, they said, here's the Gods and Monsters plan. Here's what we are doing. We have an aggressive way to take the entire DC pantheon and turn what is turned into something mundane or mediocre into a brand new universe with a plan. Okay? We're all excited about this plan. Fantastic. I'm very excited about a Lanterns TV series with 2 actors that are marquee names. And Damon Lindelof, maybe not my cup of tea, but he obviously did the Watchmen series for HBO. He's not a stranger to HBO. I'm thinking great.
Dude, the showrunner of the show was the guy from Ozark.
Unbelievable talent associated with Lanterns. I can't wait to see it. I have been extremely disappointed in what DC has done in terms of their application of these grand plans. And I think that it's really a missed opportunity, because if I was James Gunn, I would come out guns a-blazing. And all we've seen is Peacemaker, 2nd season of him and Superman. What we haven't seen, and then Supergirl, I mean, Craig Gillespie was a good choice to direct based on what he'd done before, but Supergirl was a huge, monumental faceplant on every level. And I was perplexed by this. I'm like, you adapted a comic series. How about the color palette of that comic? Beautiful, unbelievable. Wow. And then you decided to make it, you made space and you made the DC universe mundane by making every planet seem to have one bar on it and a bunch of bikers. Like, where's the awe and wonder that DC Comics have provided me my whole life? I am very disappointed by what's going on. And when we hear about a Jimmy Olsen series, I mean, I understand Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, the comic that Jack Kirby did, that's where they introduced all of the Fourth World, and they introduced Apocalypse, and they introduced New Genesis and the entire New Gods. But is that the way to go? I think we all have to wait and see. Maybe at the end of this week, we can think, wow, man, Lanterns rules. I can't wait to say it. I hope I can say that because they've replaced the third season of House of the Dragon that ruled with Lanterns.
It was so good.
And I'm hoping, dude, there's no one more than me. I love Green Lantern. I love Green Lantern my whole life. I want to see this. Aaron Pierre and Coach Taylor from one of my favorite shows of all time, Friday Night Lights, the actual Star Trek of West Texas football or East Texas football.
Well, and you know what's
God
funny?
damn, make it
I always say on this show, winning cures everything, right? Like it's funny how winning changes your perception of things, and so does losing, right?
Yeah.
Because like with Supergirl, it was the first real trip up, but it's painted our entire, I include myself in this, it's painted our entire perception of what's going on. It will be interesting to hear our own donkey mouths talking if we could jump ahead
Donkey.
4 months into the future, and that's a future where Lanterns absolutely ruled and Clayface was awesome, to hear then how we're looking at the general state. You know what I'm saying? I'm including myself in this.
I hope like a Shawshank Redemption hope. It's that good.
Hope. It's so dangerous. Anyway, Sean, you saw this report. So the same two questions to you. What's the first thing that pops into your head or your first response when you hear that they may be shelving or at least delaying inevitably at some point Waller and Paradise Lost? And then what do you think the rationale behind that might be?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Kathleen Kennedy earlier and kind of that Star Wars problem of announcing all these projects a little bit too soon and then canceling them. And this has that same flavor to it of, man, I love Star Wars. I love DC. And when you get to a point in time where I'm not excited when you announce things because I no longer trust that it's actually going to happen, there's a sense of loss in that. And this isn't quite there yet, but we're moving in that direction of like, this is a lot of projects that you announced that have gotten backburnered. Authority, Swamp Thing, 2 TV shows, and other things as well. So that's concerning, and just kind of to the point of, because Supergirl was not so good, and it had the same air of what previous DC EU movies had issues with, of studio interference, pulling it away from the director. And so it's like, are we just doing the same thing again as James Gunn, repeating the same mistakes, and then projects announced but don't happen? You just kind of get that sense of like, oh man, I really want there to be 2 back-to-back wins in the back half of this year. That would make me feel a lot better, because I only want the DCU to win. But to the question of why, I think you're right of they're just refocusing. And Waller being the kind of third spinoff from the Suicide Squad after Creature Commandos and Peacemaker Season 2.
Yeah.
Like, that's a weird thing to do, that many spinoffs of something that's not A-list. And then doing a Wonder Woman spinoff prequel thing before you do Wonder Woman. Once again, it's like, I don't know that we're heading in the right direction. Let's focus on the heavy hitters that really move the needle, make a big splash, and are very broadly accessible. MCU didn't announce Guardians of the Galaxy until after Avengers. Let's take that big, bold swing. Once we have our big win, now we can take risks. And I think they need to learn that lesson.
If you want a good example of how our feeble little idiot brains can work, you all know how huge, and this is not hyperbole, I am a huge James Gunn fan. I love James Gunn. But even I am, to go back to the Kathleen Kennedy comparison, when Kathleen Kennedy was handpicked by George Lucas himself to lead Lucasfilm, on paper, I was like, that is a great pick. Like, other than, I don't know, maybe Steven Spielberg, nobody else knows the mind of George Lucas better. Nobody knows. Steven Spielberg himself calls Kathleen Kennedy the greatest producer of all time. She has an impeccable first ballot Hall of Famer resume, arguably one of the top 2 or 3 producer resumes in the history of Hollywood. She just does. If you don't recognize that, you're kind of an idiot. She just does. But what we found out was, just because you're great at one job doesn't necessarily mean, even if on paper it looks like a good fit, doesn't necessarily mean that when you get into this other job that it's going to work out as well. And we clearly found out that being a Hall of Famer producer didn't necessarily mean she's going to be a great executive for a studio. My fear right now, and again, you're looking at one of the world's biggest James Gunn fans here. My fear is that this might be Kathleen Kennedy 2.0. That maybe James Gunn, who knows more about comics than any of the rest of you watching this show right now, and knows more about the history of comics and all that kind of stuff. Maybe James Gunn, who has yet to make a movie I don't love. Yet maybe just because James Gunn has all that doesn't necessarily mean he was the right guy to be the head of a studio. I'm not saying I'm there yet. I'm not yet pronouncing this to be Kathleen Kennedy 2.0 yet. I want to see what happens with Lanterns, and then I want to see what happens with Clayface, and then I want to see what happens a little bit after that. But I have to admit, as one of the biggest defenders of James Gunn and as one of the biggest fans of James Gunn, I got to say I'm starting to wonder if a year from now, I'm not going to be thinking about this as Kathleen Kennedy 2.0. Again, I'm not there yet. Can't wait to see Lanterns, and winning cures everything, because we could be singing totally different harmonies this point 2 months from now, but it's just kind of interesting to see where we're at. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about all this? These Waller and Paradise Lost series apparently maybe scrapped, maybe just put on the back burner for a few years, whatever. It's more things announced that are now getting either axed or delayed or whatever, and it seems to be a growing collection of them, which is a little concerning when we're only this far into a new cinematic universe. I'm still going to carry the torch, and I'm still going to remain optimistic, but my optimism's starting to get a little bit shaky. Whatever you guys think about all this, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Ultra Pouches. A lot of people use nicotine thinking it'll give them a little extra focus or even help before a workout. But nicotine is a vasoconstrictor. It narrows your blood vessels and can actually work against that pump and recovery that you're looking for. That's where Ultra Pouches come in. What you're really going to like about them is that they're 100% nicotine-free and caffeine-free. They're designed to give you smooth energy and focus without the nicotine crash. Pop one in before a workout or when you're sitting down for a long work session, and it's an incredibly convenient little boost. Ultra is the ultimate guilt-free pouch, delivering instant focus and mental clarity without nicotine or caffeine. New customers can use the code CAMPEA to get 15% off at takeultra.com. That's TAKEULTRA.com for 15% off with the code CAMPEA. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that our show sent you.